What if you're taking up a ton of time and energy preparing for an interview, but then you realize that all that effort is working against you? See, I have a dog. His name is Luke. And Luke taught me that the best intentions aren't always enough. Let me share this story with you because it ties right into preparing for an interview. See, when we first got Luke, we took him for a walk, and the first thing we realized is that he was walking us. He's going way faster. And I remember Martin and I having a conversation, and we were like, I saw on TV that you should just let him roam and then he'll calm down. He's just trying to understand his surroundings. Okay, sure. So for weeks, I think it was probably months, we would walk outside with Luke and we would just let him roam around wherever he wanted to. And that's true. Eventually he would calm down and we'd be fine. We practiced that a lot. But then we got frustrated and we called a dog behaviorist. And this dog behaviorist basically said, listen, you taught Luke to walk you. You didn't teach him or train him to walk with you. Interesting, right? Best intentions, tons of effort, absolutely zero progress. In fact, we were going in the wrong direction. See, when people think that practice makes perfect, they unknowingly reinforce the wrong approach. And that's what leads to confusion when you leave the interview thinking, I nailed it. But then, days, weeks, even months later, you ask yourself, I don't understand. Why wasn't I hired? If that feels familiar, then stay tuned for today's episode because I'm going to share with you by the end a small action that you can take this week to get clarity on how to turn things around. Hey there, this is the Uncommon Career Podcast, and I'm here with you every single week so that you are not alone in the job search. In this podcast, we help you to catch your blind spots to make sure you're going in the right direction and help you to stop spinning your wheels on career hacks back from 2010. My name is Patricia Ortega. I'm your brand strategist, career coach, and the one helping you to get it right the first time. Now, whether this is your first time here in this episode or if you've been listening for a while, the first thing you should do if you haven't already is to download the 5-step process. And the reason I say that is because this is not just telling you the 5 steps that we use with our clients, it's walking you through the strategy behind every single one of them. And today we're going to talk about practicing for the interview, but inside that download, you're going to see our strategy. And what we talk about today is going to connect with that interview strategy. And you're going to think about it a little bit differently. Every time people download it, I get a message on LinkedIn and they're like, this is mind blowing. I have not been thinking about the interview in this way, and this is changing everything for me. So thank you so much to you. If you have sent me a message on LinkedIn, if you haven't yet downloaded it, then download it. And then let me know on LinkedIn what you think. Okay, so let's get into this. Here's the thing. Practice on its own is not helpful. Let me say that one more time. Practice on its own is not helpful. It's only one part of the story. I know there's a quote going around that says practice makes perfect, but that's not true. There's actually a different quote that says practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect makes perfect. You don't get to perfection by practicing the wrong thing. And there's this theory that I learned in my master's program way back when, 15, 20 years ago now, that stuck with me ever since then. It's called deliberate practice. Now, the theory of deliberate practice goes like this. Practice on its own does not lead to improvement. Practice is repetition, which is good. It's one of the several components in deliberate practice. But in addition to practice or repetition, deliberate practice requires refinements. And refinements are small changes, small improvements over time. The reason I call attention to small refinements is because it's not major refinements. Oftentimes in the search, what happens is if one career story didn't land, you change the entire story or you switch everything up about it. We're talking about practice, repetition, with small refinements. So every time you practice, you change one little thing, you make it just a little bit better. Now, how do you know what to make better? How do you know what's not already good enough? And how do you know what's the one thing you have to work on if this is ever going to land with the hiring leader? Well, that's a feedback loop. meaning that every time you repeat something, you get feedback. Based off that feedback, you make a small tweak, then you practice again, get more feedback, make a small tweak, and that's how you improve. Now, what does this look like in practice? Typically, I share the course content with my clients, and there's a video that teaches you the foundation of whether it's interview strategy, persuasive interviewing, or creating your career stories. You're telling me about yourself. And so you get the foundation there. There's a video and there's a playbook that goes along with it. So you can, pull out any information or examples that you need. And then that's the first layer, knowledge. The next layer is the workbook. This is where you get to apply your own situation. You get to write out your own career stories. And then typically, you and I would meet where we would coach to identify any misinterpretations of what you just learned and any refinements that you made that maybe we can optimize or tweak or correct. Because when you're talking about something as high stakes as an interview, you want to make sure that you get it right. And so that's what we do in these coaching sessions to optimize. Then you get into a mock interview, and that's where we go through feedback loops. And in these feedback loops, you get to see what is the low lift, high leverage or low lift, high impact changes that you can make. So you're not trying to change everything, but we're trying to pick the top 2, 3, 4, shifts that you can make that would make a really big difference in how you're perceived in the interview. So that's the feedback loop. Here's an example that I encountered literally this week, and I thought, oh, this is so perfect to share. I have this client. She is phenomenal at kind of talking off the cuff in interviews, and she sounds great. There's one thing though that I would recommend for her to work on, or I did recommend for her to work on. She had this way of overcoming objections that was real savvy. However, there wasn't an objection on the table. So what she would do is she would introduce an objection as a way to begin addressing it. But again, there was no need to introduce the objection. So we coached on this a couple of different times, right? There's multiple instances. This is a repetition. And with each instance, we refined what it was about that instance that was introducing an objection. Now, over time, she learned the skill, and now not only is she great off the cuff, but now she has strategy. So it's a difference between I can talk and fly by the seat of my pants and answer just about any question and look really confident. There's a difference between that type of great communication and strategic communication, which is as I'm speaking to the interviewer, I am thinking about how it's landing with them. I am overcoming objections. I am anticipating needs and concerns. I am, phrasing things in a way that optimizes how compelling my career story is, or my tell me about yourself response is, or the questions that I ask, any part of the conversation. Anyhow, she learned this over multiple instances and multiple feedback loops and refinements. And can I tell you, she is such a powerful interviewer. And this last time, she kind of sent me her preparation and we looked through it. And I was like, the student has become the master. And I was super excited about that because now she's going to go in there and rock her interview, whether or not she and I touch base before her interview, because she's not just following the words that I might give her. That's not what we're working on. She has the skill that she can use in the next interview and the next one and in future job searches. It was really exciting to see that happen. But all of this to say that practice alone isn't going to get you there, but practice with refinement every time and having that refinement based on accurate feedback loops, that is what turns your effort into progress. That is what compounds all the effort that you've put into preparing for your interview. Now, here's the thing. To interview well, if there's one thing you remember from this episode, it is this. To interview well, you need to get the message right before you practice it. Otherwise, you might be practicing and reinforcing the wrong thing. Now, I hope that as we wrap up this episode, you're starting to feel like just a new level of awareness, a new level of intentionality about what it is that you are practicing when you prepare for your interviews. Are you practicing something that maybe you read online or that's in a YouTube video, or maybe something that you heard on this podcast, but just doesn't have all the context that you need for your specific situation? That intentionality is really going to pay off. And there's one action that I would encourage you to take this week. It's a really small action, but that small action can turn things around and give you clarity. And that is to ask one question. What am I reinforcing by continuing to practice as I am now? Now, I know it can be kind of difficult to consider whether or not your current mode of practice is working for you because you're maybe not sure what to compare it to. And that's totally fair. So come back with me next week because we are going to be talking about interview strategy and specifically pulling away from rote practice and into more strategic skill building. Now, hopefully that will be really helpful for you. But if at this point you're not really sure you're reinforcing the right message at all, then an intensive would be the next best step. And you can take that step as early as next week. I've got about 6 slots this month, and what we'll do in that intensive is take a look at both your materials and your messaging, and we'll help you clarify where it's best to focus your time. Think of it as a built-in feedback loop or a built-in intervention. That's going to help you to get going in your job search and to see a whole lot more traction. If you're interested, you can head over to theuncommoncareer.com/intensive to see available times. Again, the link is in the description, but you can type it into your browser. That's theuncommoncareer.com/intensive. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. It was so eye-opening to have a conversation with a client recently, so I thought it was really helpful to share this with you as well. Again, I'll meet up with you next week, but for now, know that Denise and I are cheering you on. We're praying for you, and we'll see you on the next one. Hey, thanks for listening. I really appreciate you spending time with me today. If you found this episode helpful, please tap the 5-star review on the show's homepage in your podcast app. It would absolutely make my day, and it helps others discover the Uncommon Career Podcast. Now, to download your free career resources and learn how I help seasoned professionals land amazing offers in as little as 90 days, click on the link in the description or go to theuncommoncareer.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.